This bill is vital to America's future interests. We fix the border problem in this bill.
When have you ever heard Chuck Schumer say what a surprising number of conservatives have come up with is vital? Never. When they call for bipartisanship, it means they want you to shut up. Let's go to the Senate border bill. So this is something right now. Let's just kind of clear this up where we are. So the Senate unveiled it's like this $111 billion. $18 billion. Sorry.
That's all going to the border.
Yes, the bipartisan, it's complete garbage. So this is going to be voted on most likely this week, right? We'll probably talk about the Senate. Then, of course, it really is very unlikely to make it to the House because you will see this outrage recycled and they don't necessarily inform you as to the actual legislative process. I know that a lot of you know this, but I can't tell you how many times we get people sending in chat going, now that this new border bill is law. Yeah. No, it's not. It's very unlikely to be what you currently see in its final form. And this is not new. This is remedial. I know some of you are new here. We went through this with Barack Obama when we were talking about dreamers, right? And if there was something on my desk, I would sign it tomorrow. When the left says bipartisan, when they all of a sudden say, hey, we need bipartisanship, what they mean is they need to get what they want. And if you don't go along, then you're no longer compromising, that you are unreasonable. They'll label you the party of no. That's what this is. Okay. And by the way, Speaker Johnson, been impressed with him. He said that the bill is DOA if it makes it to the House. So let's just show you really quickly to give you some context here. And then we'll give you some numbers on this bill. But again, the theme is bipartisan. It's bipartisan. It's bipartisan. This is great. It's bipartisan. It's bipartisan. So they can say, look, Republicans won't sign the bipartisan bill. Extremists, MAGA, basket of deplorables. So stop with the idea of saying I'm a compassionate conservative. We talked about that last week. Stop saying I'm a moderate conservative. Because if you don't go along with the bill that provides hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, Israel, to wars that has nothing to do, by the way, with immigration, then you'll be labeled an extremist. I think that would literally encompass everyone from libertarians to MAGA Republicans. Or extremist, as they call it. Mm-hmm. Here's Schumer feasting on a child. No, sorry, discussing the bill.
Yeah, different.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Watch.
So after 4 months of let me say it again. After 4 years of ladies and gentlemen, after 4 months of
it's a live stream,
arduous, difficult negotiations, I am really proud and pleased to announce that Democrats and Republicans in the Senate have come to an agreement on the bipartisan supplemental bill tonight. This bill is vital to America's future interests. We fix the border problem in this bill.
When have you ever heard Chuck Schumer say what a surprising number of conservatives have come up with is vital? Never. That's what I want you to pay attention to. It's the sleight of hand. When they call for bipartisanship, it means they want you to shut up. And then when they're in power, of course, they're never bipartisan, just to be clear. But for some reason, so many Republicans have allowed themselves to be labeled the party of no. And a big reason is because of people like the Mitch McConnells of the world who are empty suits.
No, that's not fair. Crowder, that's not fair to say about my Uncle McConnell.
My turkey neck.
Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah, that's not fair. I said he's a Kentucky man, and I'm a Kentucky man, too.
That's right. A man learns to play baseball. You couldn't do any of that stuff.
No,
in this cartoon. Now, if you don't learn to play baseball, I'll put this young boy in a dress.
What?
I think I heard, man.
No.
Yeah. By the way, this guy saying bipartisan is vital. Let's just, for context, this is the kind of stuff that you have heard Schumer say when he's not trying to act as though he's a reach across the aisle prick.
Republicans and only Republicans are holding everything up because of unrealistic, maximalist demands on the border. And millions of American women are having their rights ripped away by a MAGA, hard-right Supreme Court. Days away, once again, from a government shutdown, all at the hands of this endless MAGA madness. Republicans played a dangerous and risky partisan game, and I am glad that their brinksmanship did not work. We even saw MAGA extremists bring all of Congress to a grinding halt for more than a month.
So just keep in mind, MAGA extremists, when you're talking about the Dobbs case, which allows states to regulate abortion. So you can still have a 32-week abortion and do in places like California and places like Colorado. That's so extreme that he calls you effectively a domestic terrorist. So when he says bipartisan and vital, you know it must be really bad.
Yeah, and isn't he the same guy who stood in front of the Supreme Court when it happened and said that they will reap the whirlwind?
Yes.
And basically threatened not only the justices, but anybody that agreed with the justices, which was the entire Republican Party?
Yep.
I think that's the same guy.
Yeah. Also, speaking of guys we don't like, this Mitch McConnell had this to say about the bill. I am grateful to Senator Langford for working tirelessly to ensure that supplemental national security legislation begins with, I say, direct and immediate solution to the crisis at our southern border. So hit the like button.
Every time you talk, you have to use that voice for him.
Yes.
Hit the like button if you want to see McConnell in a nursing home.
Or in a cartoon.
Well, I don't think you can afford to put.
I say.
Yeah, you gotta come with like you have
The neck fat.
what's it called? A jowl?
turkey neck.
Jowl. Yeah, you
Yeah.
pretend like you have a jowl.
We'll tell him it's a nursing home. We'll be like, well, this is hospice.
And he'll respond by going like this
Yes, exactly.
for 4 minutes.
And all is well. And notice the closer you get to the top, the more like they become. There was an exception. President Donald Trump. Some people call him former president. Some people call him sitting president. I call him sitting president. Okay,
Sitting.
So that's why they can't
standing.
stand the guy. And there are other reasons to not be able to stand him. But if you look at the Grahams and the McConnells, and then the Bidens, and then the Schumers of the world, you go, oh, okay, that's where you think the game is rigged. I've traveled this country, thousands of people in every city, never once met a Mitch McConnell fan. That's how you know these people are effectively coronated. They're not necessarily elected.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go through the claims with this bill. All references are available at louderwithcrowder.com, link in the sidebar. The claim is that this is a bipartisan bill, right? So let's go through this really quickly. The bill was drafted by Kirsten Sinema in Arizona, Chris Murphy, Jim Langford. Wait, wouldn't there be a lot more?
No, well,
Wouldn't there be a lot more?
no.
I thought, hold on a second. I thought we were talking about this was, oh, you mean it's not drafted by the whole, no, the Senate votes on it.
Oh wait, so it's bipartisan voted, but uniparty written?
Pretty much. They say like, toss an R on there, a Democrat, a Republican, an independent. That's where you can stack the deck. It's like conducting a trial, a clinical trial, and you somehow alter the sample group or the control group, right?
Yeah.
This is why there are standards to certain trials and studies being admitted. So sure, I guess it's bipartisan. That's not representative of the voting base, to be clear. And the Oklahoma GOP...
Or even the House.
Or even the House. They censured Langford for support of this bill.
Yeah.
And this is what you see Democrats do. They create a problem, they draft bipartisanship legislation, they get a handful of rhinos to sign on, and then they shame actual conservatives, other Republicans, for not passing the bill. So they're going to be saying bipartisan until, of course, this thing gets stonewalled for valid reasons, which we'll get to, and then say, look at the extremists. So we'll get to the details, but just remember that. I'm calling it right now. Bipartisan, except for the extremists. Well, you're talking about you're talking about you can count on one hand. You could count on one flipper hand if you were like the twin who didn't get the placenta.
Oh.
The amount of people.
Who's that one rep from Oklahoma? What was his name?
Langford. Yeah.
He's sitting there like, I'm one of the good ones.
Yes.
I'm a
I listened to him talk about it. He genuinely thinks that this is a good idea.
Yeah, I know.
Like, this is terrible.
Well, it's because he can't read.
Well, come on. No.
Well, he wrote it.
We
So
don't
I
want to be
guess
literacists.
It's true.
Here's another example that we talked about. Well, let me just show you so you can believe your lying eyes and ears. Here's a Barack Obama in 2013 blaming the government shutdown on a handful of extreme. By the way, let's just be clear. Shutdown means that everyone's pushing for something and then some other people say, no, we don't agree. So a shutdown is a natural consequence of the process. All of a sudden, the shutdown just becomes about people who don't want to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on useless shit. And by the way, we're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on useless shit. You complain about how we need hundreds of billions of dollars for books or improving schools. No, you need them for more bombs. Just to be clear. What point are there enough bombs? And by the way, I'm someone who supports the fact that we have nuclear weapons. I think it's good. Keeps Russia at bay. Like, hey, what are you doing, Iran? We see what you're doing, right? We're flicking the jab out. I understand that. But do we really need another $60 billion pledged to Ukraine right now? Hey, if that's not a valid reason, taking hundreds of billions of dollars from Americans, or as they refer to it, a rounding error, to provide it to foreign nations so they can build or purchase weapons, likely purchasing them from giant American military contractors, then what would be a valid reason for a government shutdown? Does it have to be $10 trillion for more bombs? And this is why the whole electorate, the idea of Republican and Democrat is switching. Not that I'm a moderate, but that you see too many Republicans lining up here and allowing the Democrat playbook to continue through, the progressive left playbook, which, by the way, is anti-American and it's anti-human, just to be clear. So here's Barack Obama in 2013 blaming the government shutdown on extremist Republicans.
Good morning, everybody. At midnight last night, for the first time in 17 years, the Republicans in Congress chose to shut down the federal government.
Oh.
Let me be more specific. one faction of one party in one house of Congress, in one branch of government, shut down major parts of the government.
Good.
All because they didn't like one law. Republicans in the House of Representatives refused to fund the government unless we defunded or dismantled the Affordable Care Act.
Yes. Obamacare for the uninitiated. And by the way, nothing has been a greater kickback to insurance companies than Obamacare. Look at the premiums, look at your deductibles, look at what it has done for American healthcare. You can only get Obamacare, you can only get on that in that insurance market if you are basically below the poverty line. And of course, it's very difficult to do. If you are a middle-class American who actually pays taxes, you are getting screwed by that bill and paying more for healthcare. There's been nothing more corrosive to American healthcare than Obamacare, to be clear. Wish they would have shut it down longer.
Yes.
And held out more.
Yes. Right? By the way, at least we're spending, hundreds of millions, if not billions of additional dollars every single year and still not solving the problem of the uninsured, which was the whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, there's 50 million uninsured Americans. How many are there now? Like 48 million.
Yeah, 48 million. Yeah, turns out.
We miscalculated on that a little.
So, maybe shut down in retrospect.
Yeah, progress.
That's one for you.
Good idea.
Now, former Vice President Biden did the exact same thing in 2023, and he blamed extreme Republicans for not passing, what was this, and just to be clear, another spending bill. Let me ask you this, okay? If you're watching right now and you're a progressive leftist or you vote Democrat. Because the answer for the Democrat Party, at least for the last, and I'm willing to bet pretty much ever, but certainly for the last 4 or 5 decades, is no. When is it ever okay to substantially cut spending? In other words, it's been increase. That's just the default. And so when they say Republicans actually want to gut, no, hold on a second. How about sometimes there have been shutdowns just because they want to increase by less?
Yep.
Is there ever a time where you finally say, you know what, maybe reducing government spending? We've been going one direction forever. Let's maybe try another one because schools haven't improved with the Federal Department of Education. If you look at our quality of life right here in the United States, certainly over the last 3 years, it has not improved. You look at infrastructure has not improved. But you don't necessarily think things are getting better. Certainly you're not seeing that money that you're spending more and more, being taxed more and more. And I also don't know why we need to be taxed at this point. You can just print more money, so why tax any of it?
That.
None of this is there ever a point, comment below, is there ever a point, and this is a genuine question to the Democrats out there, is there ever a point where you would say, you know what, maybe we need to cut spending a little bit? Because if you believe that, you are what? According to former Vice President Biden and the entire DNC, an extremist Republican.
Just a few months ago, the Speaker of the House and I agreed to spending levels for the government. We were up right to the very edge, almost reneged on our debt.
Obama made sure to make the letters big for him.
Yes.
We're going to fund essential priorities and still cut the deficit by $1 trillion over the next decade. Now, a small group of extreme House Republicans, they don't want to live up to that deal. And everyone in America could be faced with paying the price for that.
And of course, we fact-checked that. We did a whole segment. I would not actually cut the deficit, just to be clear. And hey, the deficit means that you're spending far more than you actually have, right? Then the debt is the cumulative.
Right.
So over 10 years, if you believed his claim, you'd maybe reduce the deficit. I mean, you'd still spend way more than you actually bring in. But, that would be better than where we are. Well, hold on a second, though. But the debt, so in other words, we're still growing the debt by trillions every single year? Yeah. Still a bigger tab. Well, then you're not really solving the problem, are you? Well, no.
We're just making it less worse.
But we're buying votes. Oh, that's right. You're not taking it. We're buying votes.
Yeah. And you made this point, but I think most, and you guys can fact check me out there, I think most of the apparent government shutdowns or problems they've had with spending bills have not been to cut spending. It's been to cut the growth of spending.
Right.
It's saying instead of growing by, say, 3%, we do 1.5 or 2 versus 4 or something like that. Every single one that I can remember where there has been a fight over the last 20 years, it's been because of that.
Yes.
Not cutting actual spending.
Right.
That's insane.
This is why you want someone who's actually had business experience there, because you don't just say, hey, by how much are we going to increase our costs every single year with a business? Sometimes you actually have to scale back.
Yes.
That's what happens in a marketplace.
So
with the government, you never do.
20 some odd, 30 trillion. I don't even know how many we're in debt right now. Lane says I'm correct, by the way. I'm not always correct on that stuff, but I'm correct here. Trillions of dollars in debt? At what point you're like, we can't pay that.
Yeah. The government has been collecting more in revenue than ever, just to be clear. And it doesn't really matter so much if you increase taxes or you decrease taxes. It ends up being that, that's Hauser's law that we've talked about, between 16 and 20% no matter what. Just because of inflation, just because there's more money right now, people are actually giving more to the government than ever before. And it hasn't fixed anything.
Zero impact.
I wish that the government would care about their shareholders.
Yes,
No.
I think it could. Yeah.
Nope.
No.
Us, come on.
Well, they do. It's called the initial Social Security beneficiaries. Those are the ones. Yeah, they need those votes, so they don't want to solve that problem either. It's about buying votes. They're generating revenue so they can buy votes. Here's some more proof for you. Let's go through the actual contents of the bill. Here's a claim that they'll make that the border bill here is going to solve this invasion problem. The truth, just to be clear, it won't. So,
Not simple.
No,
No.
it just changes the wording.
Yeah. Just to be. And how do I know? Well, one of the co-sponsors, Chris Murphy, actually stated on X, "The border never closes." Well, there it is. Now, I don't need to say anything else to you. Jeez. It won't solve the problem because
Like
the
your
border
mom.
never closes.
But that was one of the things, right? And we'll get into the numbers here in a second. But it gives the president of the United States the ability to close the border if it exceeds 5,000 encounters in 7 days, right? So 7 days in a row, 5,000 encounters. And I'm like, let's just assume for a minute that that's a good idea.
Yeah.
You can close the border. How?
Right.
What are you going to do? Get the United States Armed Forces and station them along the border? You haven't been good at closing the border now.
Yeah, with 304,000 crossings.
Problem.
It's just saying it. That's what it is.
Exactly. It's
Closing
like,
the border
we'll
is
close the border.
saying
Okay,
it's
yes,
closed.
but
Well, can you just say it's closed
How?
now? 'Cause
Well, the beauty is, we're talking about hypotheticals because, again, co-sponsor of the bill, Chris Murphy, stated the border never closes.
Oh, it never
Okay, yeah,
closes.
So I don't need to say anything else.
So
but I will.
Can I call them 24 hours? Or
Yeah, exactly. He's like 7-Eleven.
They have reps.
Oh, yeah. All the time. Ready to go.
So let me give you some more. Now, if you think you can solve the border crisis with the most amount of border interactions, or I guess apprehensions, depending on the metric, it was 304,000, right? More than ever. Was that December?
It was December.
It was December.
December.
That's right. Before that, it was March of last year.
September. No, it was September.
No, that was the record before.
September was a record, and then December was another record.
Okay, before that it was March.
Yeah, something.
And then it went down a little
remember?
bit.
The migrant numbers in December.
Yes, I do.
It was a lot.
Crossing in September.
Election in November.
So let's look at more in the bill. But the border never closes. If you have a hole in your boat, you got to plug the hole first.
Yeah.
But the bill mandates that the DHS secretary can activate emergency authority only when, during a period of 7 consecutive calendar days, there's an average of 5,000 or more aliens who are encountered each day, or on any one calendar day, a combined total of 8,500 or more aliens are encountered. So, again, if it doesn't cross the threshold, so let's say you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6 days we had over 5,000, but then day 7 you hit 4,999. It resets. Oh.
What if a guy misses the clicker? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The guy at Costco's counting these
Yes,
guys? Or
exactly.
what?
Even if it averages out to be more than 5,000 a day,
Right.
but one day is lower. But let's just take the math and say really conservatively, all right, it's only 4,999 a day. That would still be 1.8 million illegal immigrants crossing per year.
That's nothing.
That we encounter. These
Yes.
are not the people that we don't see or stop.
And by the way, the total under Donald Trump, his presidency, was 1.9 million.
Oh, wow.
So those are rookie numbers. We want to pump those up.
yeah.
I wonder if that number is larger or smaller than our current military numbers.
It's a good point.
I know the answer.
You do. I'm betting
It's
you.
terrifying smaller.
It is terrifying. Oh, that's
No, the military.
Yeah, yeah.
Smaller.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Well,
just
no,
be overrun.
We'll just conscript these guys and
Quite
put them in
literally.
military service. There we go.
Just be overrun by bumblebee bodies.
Bumblebee bodies
World
like
War
Transformers
Z.
or like Mexican ladies?
All of the above.
I am Optimus Prime. I'm your date tonight.
Yo soy optimizo primo. Combine both worlds, Josh. Come on.
That's a good job, Joe.
Mark Wahlberg is like, no, I'm not going to do dubbing, okay? I'm going to do it in real time. Let's do 2 takes. I'll do it in Japan. Donde está Bumblebee?
Huh? You want to cross the border?
Gonna cross the border? Huh? If I was watching the border, it wouldn't go down like that, okay? Where's Megan Fox? She's not in this movie?
I was told it's going to be a hot girl in this movie.
There was Megan Fox. There was a blonde one in the second one. We never saw her again. Why don't you bring her back? She's not doing anything. So,
She was your daughter in the movie.
was she? No. No, she wasn't.
She was.
The hot one from the
Yes.
second Terminator?
Yes.
Second
For Mark
Transformers?
Wahlberg, it was his daughter. Not his real daughter. In the movie, it was his daughter.
I don't believe you. So, All of this, by the way, is meaningless. Getting back to the bill, it's all meaningless because former Vice President Biden, he can suspend it.
He could just not do it.
He could just not do it.
Like, oh, it's in the best interest of the United States for me not to do this, even though it's an emergency.
Yeah. No. Huh? Oh, well, and that screws your whole plan? That's like, to give you an idea, this actually happened in Canada. Someone tried to assassinate our prime minister in Canada. They made it into the House.
With a pie?
No, it's even worse. They made it into the house of the prime minister, and they took cutlery from the prime minister's house. They didn't even show up with a weapon. And they made it to the prime minister's bedroom. And the wife was like, oh, crap, and closed the door. And that's how it was thwarted.
And he had a butter knife, and he's like,
Like it was signs.
Yeah.
It's like, that man has a spork. Let me close the door. That's how useless this is. If someone can just, I'll close the door. That's former Vice President Joe Biden. He's like, no. It's left up to his discretion, to be clear.
By the way, just I want you to take a guess. How many days over the last year do you think that we've had more than 5,000 encounters?
How many days?
How many days
over the last year?
I'm gonna shortcut it.
365.
All.
All? No.
Yeah. I don't even think there was one day that we didn't have.
Well, why would you ask me a question? It's a trick question. You already knew the answer. Okay.
Here's a fun thing.
What are you doing there, guy?
He said he could shut down the border and he can take care of this problem for us, right? But he can only shut it down for a certain number of days each year, and the number of days that he can shut it down each year is going down. I think it starts at like 270 and it ends up in like the high 100 at the end, which means even though that provision would be there, and we had all of the days in the last year that had over 5,000. He couldn't close it down for all the days over 5,000.
Well, he could. He just chose not to.
He can't. I'm saying with this bill, the bill still wouldn't allow him to do it.
No, it's absurd.
There's so many holes. It's like the border. The bill is like the border.
Yes, exactly. Well, it gets even worse than that because I know what you're thinking. Hey, this is a bill to solve the immigration crisis, right? Yeah. That's harming a lot of Americans, not only through the labor market, but it's also harming Americans through rising crime, right, across certainly in southern border states.
Housing market.
The housing market, of course, all of these issues. And, of course, not only it costs the taxpayer $120-something billion a year. I believe it's $140 billion a year now. Last time we did it, when we did the Change My Mind, it was
it's over 150. Over 150.
That's right. It's over 150 billion.
Jeez.
6 years ago, it was 116 billion. That's what illegal immigrants cost you, the taxpayer.
Year.
So you think, border bill, as it's being called, bipartisan. This must be about the border.
And
that's the claim. The claim is the bill is about the border. The truth... bullshit. Just to be clear. It's bullshit, okay? Most of the money is foreign aid. So let's walk through this. To the Ukraine, $60 billion. $14 billion to Israel. Another $2.4 billion to the Red Sea conflict. When you're talking about Taiwan, the Indo-Pacific kind of conflict, another $4 billion. Now, this is a $118 billion bill, $20 billion of which goes to the border.
Holy mackerel.
How much?
3 times the amount to Ukraine alone. Call it the Ukraine bill where the border tossed its name on there.
Exactly.
That makes me want to go just...
Like a white silverback.
Yourself and eat a carrot? Yeah.
I thought it was a gorilla. It was Seagal.
No, it was Seagal.
Pretty close, yeah. This is Seagal.
That's a bad impression.
How much money do you think is in there for building an actual wall?
This is a trick question. Let me get zero.
Oh, zero is the answer. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that they do every single time. And we'll talk about this with regards to Reagan and amnesty first and build the wall later. If there's money left over, then it goes back to Congress to see if they actually want to use the leftover funds to actually build a wall.
Bullshit.
Oh,
a wall.
Yeah.
They're going to have $20 billion in surplus.
The thing that would keep you from ever reaching the 5,000 mark in a single day of encounters at a non-port of entry, the wall, the only thing that would, is not even being built in this bill.
I'll settle for building a wall around Kiev.
Just to keep him in? Just like... It's Kiev.
Kiev. I've heard Kiev. I've heard Kiev. I don't care. It's a country that I don't care about. Not the people.
The country.
The country in general. I don't like Russia. I don't like Ukraine. Just to be, I get it. All of God's children doesn't apply here. So
they don't believe in God over there. They don't have a God.
Think about that. Nothing going to a border wall. $20 billion to the border. It's called the border. They're calling this the border bill.
Yes, just go pass your funding to Ukraine separately. Go pass Israel funding separately. Indochina separately. This $20 billion, unless it's to build a wall, which by the way $20 billion would do, It doesn't matter. Stop talking.
Well, what the left wants to do is say, look, they don't want to solve the border problem, but what's really happening is they don't want to individually propose one another $60 billion for Ukraine because they know that their constituents would vote them out. That would be incredibly unpopular.
They would say, hell no.
So they say it's a border bill. Republicans won't pass it. And conservatives should be saying, no, it's 3 times the amount to Ukraine alone. This has nothing to do with the border. They want to blame you so they can make you unpopular, and they want to make all of you watching, let's get rid of representatives, your point of view unpopular, which is why they're afraid of it, which is why they're afraid of calling this bill the Ukraine bill, because they don't want to be unpopular, because it's fundamentally dishonest, and no one wants to send another $60 billion to Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, they are spending that $20 billion on something on the border. They're actually building new ports of entry.
Yes.
It's going to be fast-track citizenship, and then right after you get out of the port of entry, boom, registration building.
And it's also a trick because the ports of entry are just new on-the-border franchises.
No.
It's just southern.
Nice.
Come on.
It's mediocre Mexican food.
Their salsa's good.
Well, they will make it better. They will improve it.
Chunky.
Yeah.
Some of them immigrants. Some of them are coming from Africa and won't do shit for us. But
They won their no-bid contract beating out Chi-Chi's.
oh,
Chi-Chi sucks.
Is that still
hey,
around?
Chi-Chis are great.
Yeah, Chi-Chi's, they used to have the Margarita
not a boot
Tuesdays.
guy.
They suck.
Fine. Let's go to another claim here. They'll try and say that former Vice President Biden is powerless to do anything again. So he can't do anything because Republicans aren't doing anything. None of this is me without this bill.
It'll also give me, as president, the emergency authority to shut down the border until it could get back under control. If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly.
You'd have to.
Okay. First off, you wouldn't, because here's the truth. Former Vice President could shut down the border right now, immediately.
He could.
Let me give you some
You mean
precedents
he
here.
doesn't need new power?
Yeah, 2018, the Supreme Court upheld President Trump's travel ban. Justice Roberts already said that the president has the authority to make national security judgments related to immigration. Just to be clear, the president right now has the authority to do so. He does not. He did not. He undid a lot of Donald Trump's executive orders, executive actions on the border. His very first day, it was his priority to undo it.
Number one.
And just to be clear, this is one of those issues that would fall under the legitimate purview of government to protect you from internal and external threats.
Yep.
And now it's being left to the states where it's working. In Texas, let's look at some of the, Eagle Pass, by the way. They've taken some measures there, or as many of you out there call it, racist. The Eagles Pass crossings, they went from 3,000 to 4,000 crossings a day down to under 200 crossings a day.
3,000 to 4,000 is almost the 5,000 mark in one place.
In one place.
Yeah, that we've
Oh,
been
that's
talking
way too
about.
effective, Stephen.
One
We got to
place.
take down that fence.
Yes, exactly.
Well, actually, the Biden administration is so committing to securing our border that they actually sued the state of Texas and took it all the way to the Supreme Court to make sure that they could cut the razor wire that was actually reducing the problem by, around 95, 99%.
It's not like they always say, look at how much. Yeah, but hold on a second. There are 3 to 4 crossings in really one area, concentrated area. So
3 to
you could
4,000.
step in. Yeah, 3 to 4,000 per day. What did I say?
You said 3 to 4 crossings, which would have been
3 to
a really
4,000.
good
Sorry,
reduction.
3 to 4,000. 3 to 4. At some point, that's like a take an immigrant, leave an immigrant jar. I don't even know. Yeah. It's win some, lose some. No, 3 to 4,000 in one spot per day. Former Vice President Biden could have stepped in, shut it down. No, he didn't. So the state had to take it up, and then the federal government fought the state, and it works. These people don't want it to work because they want to give $60 billion to Ukraine. We could be doing even better than they're doing at Eagle Pass. Here's a summary of former Vice President Trump's, sitting President Trump's. Some people call him former president. I call him sitting president. His plan on the border.
I want to remind the public that Donald Trump and House Republicans also have their own ideas for the border. So let's review the majority's border ideas that they've actually presented. Here they are. Donald Trump actually has said that he wants to build alligator moats along the border. That's one of his incredible ideas.
I did that.
Another idea that Donald Trump has promoted is he actually wants to electrify the border fence and maybe even put some spikes on the border. That's another Donald Trump
alligators.
and MAGA majority border idea.
Got to keep the alligators out.
Yes.
Electrify the fence.
This fake news. The spikes were to keep the alligators in. But outside of that, pretty close. I did do that.
That's it. Awesome. That's a great idea. It's a wildlife preserve.
Yeah.
It's new culture for America.
And frankly, at first I wanted crocodiles because alligators are more skittish. They're like giant squirrels.
Why couldn't you get crocodiles?
Well, look, it's a whole Endangered Species Act. Take it up with Teddy Roosevelt in national parks. But I wanted crocs.
I couldn't like the plan more. It sounds like securing the border by whatever means necessary. I love how he thought he was owning Donald Trump.
It's like he goes. He had solutions. He's like, we could do a wall.
Right.
They're like, no, we can't do that. He's like, all right, well, how about the National Guard? They're like, no, we can't do that. How about sentries? No, we can't do. Well, alligator mode. That's where I'm at. Like,
do something.
It's electrified fence, spikes, alligators.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Look, you're saying the wall is too expensive. You just dig a moat. The alligators need somewhere to go, folks.
They also didn't talk about his corn maze idea. He had a great corn maze idea.
And even better, around Halloween, it would get spooky.
You would end up in Indiana. And you'd be like, how did I get here?
Nobody wants that.
I'd be like, it's not just the corn. I'd be like, I feel like it's just the
You
corn.
don't know where you are.
I've been in this maze for a week.
You get turned around, someone comes out with a jump scare, and you leave, you end up in Honduras. El Salvador, maybe. Depends on the season. So here's another truth, just to be clear. Biden's executive actions on immigration, look, it was very clear that he caused this crisis.
Yeah.
Not always can you blame someone in a position of power, but January to May 2021, okay, he rolled back right away, remain in Mexico, the policy. He terminated Trump's border emergency and the declaration that existed. He diverted border wall funds.
He said there's no more emergency on the border.
There's no more emergency on the border.
He just get rid of this. He's like, yeah, there's no more emergency. Everything's fine.
And he didn't just do this. He did it on the day he was sworn in.
First day. Keystone Pipeline was the very first thing that he signed, and then he moved right onto this.
It was the very first day that he... Hey, well, hold on a second. You did it your first day when you were being sworn in, when you were still picking out drapes, for crying out loud, for the Oval Office. Now you can't? You can't toss a little bit of help? The Eagles Pass over there in Texas?
He didn't think he'd be alive this long, to be honest.
Yeah,
he didn't know.
Yeah, I think so. If you look at the actuary tables, which I know he didn't.
I didn't think I was going to make it.
And don't take my word for it. Will LeVar Burton this? Just hear it from the illegal immigrants themselves. They wouldn't have crossed under President Trump.
Did you come here because Joe Biden was elected president?
Basically. The main thing was the violence in my country. And the second thing, I think, was Joe Biden.
Think about that for a moment.
That's an American.
Basically.
Like, you were just behind, your weakness was just behind that guy seeing his brother's head on a turtle. That was reason number one, and number two was...
It's a shell shock for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's kind of crazy. You see your head on a turtle, and it's used to be your brother. And then I like Joe Biden.
Yeah, Joe Biden's not gonna do anything, so I don't have to worry about my head on a turtle, bro.
Yeah,
oh, dude, that guy's American. There's no way that was migrant.
That absolutely
Basically,
is.
they didn't even name me country. It was like, my country. It sounded like I was doing the interview. Like, my country, it's like Mexican or whatever.
Yeah. It's violent.
I just wanted to climb a wall.
So let's wrap this up here, unless I've missed anything. Bipartisanship, of course, is not a virtue. That's what they're going to be saying. Bipartisan. Okay, let's be really clear. It's $60 billion for Ukraine. It's $20 billion for the border. The bill does not solve the crisis at all because illegals can keep coming in record numbers. They get taxpayer-funded lawyers. They get work permit requirements eliminated from this, right? You get 50,000 extra visas per year. $20 billion will be going to I think that's the most important point. $20 billion to the border, $60 billion to Ukraine. Somehow it gets called a border bill.
Yeah, $100 billion roughly not going to the border in this bill. Like 17% of the bill is border. 17%. I might be wrong by like half or 1%.
There should be a law. There should be some kind of rule. I mean, they make the rules, but there should be some kind of rule that there's a percentage that it has to be
if you're gonna call
related to the title.
Yeah,
like
right.
you call it the Blue Skies bill.
Yeah.
At least 55% needs to be dedicated to keeping the sky blue.
Right.
Like
it's like, okay, hold on a second. Yeah, you know what? I'll take the chicken salad sandwich. Like, okay, great. And they don't tell you that it's actually 80% shrimp.
Dude, this was Subway. Subway did this with tuna. Yeah. They found out.
I don't give a rat's ass.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's like, what, you think we're going to be taken out by big Subway?
Oh, shit, is Jared here?
No.
My kids are hidden.
He's being raped.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope he's getting raped real
all the
hard.
footlongs he can handle.
But yeah, they did that. They had they found out that their tuna was like 80% tuna. And they're like, what's the other 20%? They're like,
stuff.
I don't know, but we fixed it.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Well, I guess I forgot what it's like to be you, Mr. Perfect.
Mr. Jimmy John and your big game hunting.
But no, Josh, it's worse than that. It would be as if 20% of their tuna sandwich was tuna.
Yes, exactly.
That is actually the
so
exact
bad.
opposite.
Now with 20% real tuna.
Huh?
Approved.
Sorry, 17.5% real tuna.
Libby's Juicy Juice.
This bipartisan
20%
tuna.
juice for 20% kids. What?
I'm not buying that, I don't think.
Hey, man, I'd buy that. I'd buy that stuff.
What would you do with $60 billion?
Probably fight a war I can't win.
Yeah.
Come
on.
What? I'm sorry.
Don't be defeatist for Ukrainians.
We've already done that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they're in
they
Afghanistan
have.
territory.
Anything I missed?
Nope.
I think we wrapped it up. There you go.
Yep.
I just hope that that's $60 billion to Ukraine, $20 billion to border. $60 billion to Ukraine, $20 billion to border. $60 billion to Ukraine, $20 billion to border. It's the border bill. Now.
Well, it does include another country's border.
I really just needed to say that, and that the sponsor of the bill said the border never closes. Okay, $60 billion to Ukraine, $20 billion to border, and the border never closes. Done. But I want to ensure that you feel as though you are informed. Sometimes I just get a low-grade irritation that I even have to go through it because none of it matters at this point if the rate-limiting factor is that you don't close the border and only $20 billion and $118 billion bill goes to the border. So we have our on-the-ground correspondent. Maybe we spend our own money. Sometimes we're not necessarily the most prudent with finances. Thomas Finnegan, he's actually at least at the border right now to give us some insight on the situation of, well, it's also a big problem, just so you know, the human trafficking on the border, too. So this is something we've discussed, and we actually wanted to have Thomas Finnegan. We have Mug Club
get eyes
cover.
on it, yeah.
Get some eyes on the human trafficking situation, how it affects everyone, leaves no family untouched. On the ground, correspondent Thomas Finnegan. Mr. Finnegan, what are you seeing down there?
Hi, Stephen.
Yep. What are you seeing? What's going on at the human trafficking?
Well, as you can see behind me, humans in traffic is a serious problem. And it's not just here, it's all over the place. I actually have the stats here that I could go through.
It's a traffic report. Of course it is. Of course. Did you really think that today we were going to be doing a story on traffic?
Wow.
Thomas? Is that what you thought? You thought we were sending you out to get
Hey, do you want quesadillas for lunch?
This.
Watch Slider with Crowder live Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.